Hi there YouTube. Today is an unscripted video. I've just received something in the mail and I decided I would do a quick video on it. Now when I say quick video, my quick videos normally turn out to be about 20 minutes long, so I'm going to hopefully keep this one nice and short. So I was on eBay the other day and I bought a HP thin client. Why? Because it runs Windows CE. I'm obsessed with Windows CE. I'd never tried it on, well, I tried earlier versions, but this one had a lot more built-in software. It was £15, it included the power adapter, so I thought, why not, let's buy it. So, yeah, let's have a quick look, and let's have a quick look at what I hopefully will do to it. So here's the little thin client. I think it's a T5530 or something, T5520. It runs Windows CE. There's going to be reflections, so sorry about that. But it's a 800 megahertz processor. It's got 128 megabytes of RAM, and it's got a 64 meg flash module. Now, I went on eBay and bought this. This is an 8 gig flash module, which I'm going to hopefully open this up and replace with this. Now, the reason why I bought this was because I've used Windows CE a lot on PDAs, but never really on computers such as this. We used to use them at work. We've got a media player. There's no network connectivity currently. I haven't been bothered to run an Ethernet cable across the room. But yeah, basically Windows CE is very, very customizable, what you can include and what you don't need. So these are really good for these little devices. They take up, well, the install takes up very little space. Here we have the normal memory allocation. There's some information here about networking and some copyright information. So this is basically HP have done a really good job of skinning this and adding their own software to it. So that's why I was playing with it, and I thought for £15 I might try and install proper Windows on it. So when I say proper Windows, I have Windows 98. Now I've read that this doesn't work, so we might have to put XP on, but I'm going to give that a go first of all. So I'm going to open up the thin client, I'm going to pull out the existing SSD or flash module or whatever you want to call it. I'm hopefully going to pop that in. It looked like the right part on when I bought, well, looks like the right part. I've got a USB floppy and a USB CD-ROM, so I'm hopefully when I pull out the module and plug it in, it will just boot from floppy and I'll be able to format the drive. Failing that, we're going to try and boot it from a Windows XP install and give that a try. Right, if we just have a quick look at the back of the thin client, we've got 4 USBs, we've got Ethernet, we've got 2 PS2s, one for keyboard and one for mouse, VGA, parallel and serial. So you could hook up a printer via parallel or I guess USB, and then you'd be able to print directly from the thin client, or you could do network printing. Serial port, not entirely sure what you'd use that for on a thin client. Perhaps, I don't know, plugging some device or something in. Yeah, to take this to pieces, it's actually not very difficult. There's one screw up here which I don't think I needed to have undone, but basically this side bit slides like that. There we go. It's going to be a bit awkward with one hand. And then there's a couple of screws. There's also a couple of USBs hidden in here, so you could put a memory stick in and hide it inside there, which is quite nice. But yeah, there's a few screws that I need to undo. And then this panel will pop off, and probably can't see it, but just inside there the motherboard is on the back there. So what we'll do is this bit actually needs to come off. There's another screw just there, and that will come off, give me access to that screw, which will then mean that this bit will pop off. So back momentarily. Right, so we're inside the unit now. Under here is the processor, and I think it's the graphics chipset. You've got Not much else really. Basically the memory is soldered down to the motherboard, so you can't upgrade that. And there's a couple of headers here, I'm not entirely sure what they do. But this module here, oh by the way, there's the CMOS battery, so you can take that out and replace it if you need to. This here, this is an A-Pacer SSD or memory card. No, sorry, I'm a bit wonky, there we are. You can set it as master or slave. There's these little jumpers on there, but basically this is 64 megabytes, so this contains the Windows CE image, and this is what we're going to be replacing with the 8 gigabyte image, so we can install proper Windows on it. So I need both hands for this. Basically I need to compress this little thing here and pull it out. It's very tight. I've already pulled it out before, but it's a little bit awkward to get out, so I might have to use a spudger to give me some leverage to pull it out. It's basically underneath here, it's just a 40, I think it's a 40 pin or might be a 44 pin 2.5 inch IDE connector, so you could effectively put an IDE cable on here. The problem that you've got is there's no place inside here that you'd be able to draw power from. So I know laptop style IDE adapters, they've got a cable that runs off a Molex to power the drive, so I'm not entirely sure how you would do that with this. You might have to like piggyback the power from somewhere, but that's not what I'm capable of doing. So let's pull this module out and swap it with this module. Well, first of all, this one says A-Pacer on as well, and it looks very, very similar. So I'm fingers crossed that we're on the right track here. Okay, so here's the original one. After much pulling and annoyance, basically it's missing some NAND packages, and it's just got the one on the back. I'm guessing that's some kind of controller there. But the new one doesn't have jumpers like the old one did. Not that that'll be much of a problem, but just thought that was interesting. And you can see that there's a few more NAND packages on here. They're all Samsung branded, and if we look at the back, you'll see that they're all the pins. And then if we go inside the thin client, there you go, it's just a standard 2.5 inch IDE connector. So I'm going to put this this new module in. Oh, that's the old one, that one there, and see what happens. Okay, well I've put this back on because this actually, there's a thermal pad that touches on the processor and GPU. Now it's only an 800 megahertz CPU. It's made by VIA or VIA. It's I don't think it's an Eden, but we'll have a look. Yeah, I don't think it's going to generate too much heat. Now when I plug the power cable in, this thing auto boots. So let's just see what happens. Oh, we've got some flashy lights. It doesn't seem to be liking that. Alright, perhaps I've not connected it properly. Okay, what I did, and I don't know how, was I completely misaligned the pins for the connector. So it just it was flashing furiously, and yeah, so I've just taken the flash module off and put it back in again properly this time, and let's do a plug-in and see what happens. We have a signal. Invalid systems disk. Replace the disk and press any key. Right, I need to figure out what the BIOS key combo is to get into that. So I'll be back, said the Terminator. Okay, that was a quick Google, and basically you have to press F10. So here we go. So we have a HPT 5000 series. It is a 5530. I've just have a look on the bottom. The processor speed 800 megahertz. The flash memory is now 8000 megabytes, and the memory size is 112. That's probably because some of the memory is taken up for the video. So let's come out of there. Primary. Yep. Let's see if we've got some Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not aiming it properly. First boot, USB. Okay, so that looks good. USB boot is enabled. Third boot device. First boot device is USB, second is 88 flash, and the third is network. Yeah, okay, so that's good. Let's plug in. We haven't made any changes, so let's do that anyway. Let's plug in a USB floppy drive and see what happens. Okay, floppy and USB CD-ROM are both plugged in. Let's see what happens. Sorry for the reflection here, I've got a big massive window behind me. Ooh. Nothing on screen but noises from the floppy. Ooh, starting Windows 98. Start the computer with CD-ROM support. I suppose I better put a Windows 98 CD in the CD tray. Okay. Alright, I'm going to have a play and I'll be back. Okay, I'm trying a slightly different tact. My Windows 98 CDs, both of them, neither of them will show up when the thin client is booted from the floppy, or actually this CD is bootable. And the reason why that is because it's USB, and yeah, the CD-ROM drivers don't work with USB in DOS apparently. So what I thought I would do, and I've just got an error on screen, is install, well, I'm going to partition the hard drive. I'm going to put XP on a 4 gig part, or perhaps a 5 gig partition, and then have 3 gigs for Windows 98. What I can do is I can install XP, and then I can copy over the Windows 98 cab files, and then reboot from the floppy disk, and then do a Windows 98 install that way. It's a bit arse about face, and I'm probably going to lose access to getting into XP, but I can fix that later. But yeah, for the moment, I think that's going to be the plan. So my Windows XP CD is filthy because my CD wallet is like falling to pieces and it's going a bit sticky. So I don't know how, but that's somehow transferred onto my CD-ROM. So I was flicking through to see what other CDs I had, obviously legit copies of Windows in here, and I found my Windows XP, or Windows Fundamentals for Legacy PCs. So I'm going to boot up off that because actually that's got a much smaller install. I'm hoping that it's going to give me the option to partition the drive, and then I can do a format and all that kind of stuff. So crossing my fingers, and we'll see what happens. Okay, for those of you who are not in the know, basically Windows FLP is a very cut down version of Windows XP that was designed for legacy PCs. Obviously the name Legacy, Windows Fundamentals for Legacy PCs, but it's a really small cut down version of XP. It came out much after Windows XP came out. It was actually, if you look here, it's 2005, whereas Windows XP came out in 2001. But it has the same UI, but hardly any of the bundled apps. Like there's no games, for example. There's very few sounds. It's a very small footprint OS. So I'm going to try this, because otherwise I'm going to have to burn a Windows XP CD, and I'm using my CD burner at the moment to boot the thin client on. So I'll be back once I've done the install, and hopefully I'll have some good news. There are probably a couple of you who are screaming at the screen right now going, why don't you just make a DOS bootable floppy with USB CD-ROM support? Well, because I didn't know it existed. So I've just modified my Windows 98 boot disk with some stuff I found on the internet, and let's see what happens. My Windows 98 CD back in there. So this is some scuzzy CD-ROM nonsense, and after all that it should hopefully load my USB driver. Oh, haha. Oh. Oh well, back to the drawing board. Okay, it's been a good few hours because I've had a couple of issues, which is typical. So I basically I couldn't get the USB CD-ROM working. That was in DOS. So I partitioned the hard drive, the disk-on module, flash storage, whatever you want to call it, and I partitioned it in such a manner that Windows XP or Windows FLP took up 1 gig of the partition, and then I did an install of, well, I copied over the, what did I do? I created another partition for the C drive, and I copied over, well, I made it bootable first of all, and then I copied over the Windows 98 installation files, and then I ran through and did a setup of Windows 98. So currently on here there's no drivers or anything, which will be in the next video because I promised that this will be a quick one. Basically we've got a C drive and a D drive. The D drive is the 1 gig partition that's got Windows FLP on. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to have to put something like the name of the app escapes me at the moment, the thing that I can manage partitions, partition magic, there we go. And yeah, so I'll get rid of that and I'll merge both of the partitions, so I'll have a nice 8 gig or 7.5 gig partition. Currently there's no drivers for anything at all, so oh, I've even got problems with the PS2 port, that's interesting. So there's no Ethernet, there's no audio, and there's no USB driver, so currently it's a bit useless. But it does tell us that we're using a VIA E or a VIA Ester processor, whatever that is, and we've got 112 megabytes of RAM. The reason why it says Windows ME is I've just installed the unofficial USB driver so I can plug my memory stick in and easier. It's easier to get files to and from the modern world onto these old machines. So I'm going to end this video here. And the next video, hopefully I'll have all the drivers and it'll work and we can install some games and give it some testing. Just a quick one, I did have a look, I think the chap's name's Chris. He's got a really cool video on how to configure these devices to run Windows 98. He's got a video on YouTube. He's also got a GitHub page with a whole bunch of stuff on. Now I did try a lot of the stuff that he recommended. I tried Rufus and I tried unit booting, and that neither of those this machine would boot from. So I had to do it the only way I could think of, like I say, was partitioning the hard drive, installing Windows XP FLP onto the second partition, and then copying over the installation media. I could have got my zip drive out, but it's too slow, so I just couldn't be bothered. Anyway, stop rambling, end of the video, thanks for watching, hope to see you in the next one, take care, goodbye.